You know that feeling when you look at your credit card statement at the end of the month and wonder how a seemingly endless list of $10 and $20 transactions morphed into a massive block of financial dread? It usually happens on a random Tuesday morning. You open your banking app expecting to see a comfortable buffer, but instead you are staring at a number that makes your stomach drop. You start scrolling. You see coffee shops, fast food, digital subscriptions, app store purchases, and random online orders. None of these purchases felt significant at the time. In fact, most of them felt completely harmless. It was just $5 here and $12 there. But looking at the final tally, the math doesn't seem to make sense. It feels like you've been robbed by 1,000 tiny paper cuts. The immediate reaction for most people is intense guilt. You tell yourself that you need to be more disciplined. You promise yourself that starting next month, you'll finally stick to a rigid budget and stop wasting money on stupid things. You swear you'd tap into a newly found well of willpower. But here's what nobody tells you. You're not broken. You're not bad with money. Your brain is just operating exactly the way it evolved to operate. And the modern consumer economy is designed to exploit that specific biological programming. Stay with me because what I'm about to tell you will completely change how you see every single purchase you make from this day forward. The problem isn't your lack of discipline or your inability to track expenses. The problem is a neurochemical mechanism that has been hijacked by frictionless commerce. We live in an era where spending money has been engineered to be the path of least resistance. Every app, every checkout counter, and every targeted ad is a highly calibrated machine designed to trigger a specific response in your nervous system. They're hunting for your dopamine. Dopamine is widely misunderstood. Most people think it's the chemical of pleasure or reward. They think you buy the latte, you drink the latte, and your brain releases a happy chemical to reward you for the delicious coffee. But neuroscientists know that isn't how it works at all. Dopamine is actually the chemical of anticipation and craving. It spikes before you ever take a sip of that coffee or open that shipping box. It's the invisible engine driving the urge to acquire, and corporate marketing departments have spent billions of dollars learning exactly how to rev that engine. When we fail to understand this, we blame ourselves for losing a rigged game. We try to fight billion-dollar algorithms and decades of behavioral psychology with a flimsy spreadsheet and a vague promise to do better next time. It's like bringing a spoon to a gunfight. Today, we're going to dismantle the exact psychological mechanisms that turn harmless micro-spending into crippling financial anxiety. We're going to look at why your willpower always fails you in the checkout line, and more importantly, how to build a system that protects your money without requiring you to be perfect. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly how to rebuild your financial architecture. You'll learn how to use friction as a defensive weapon, and you'll finally stop fighting your own brain chemistry, allowing you to break free from the exhausting cycle of accidental spending. To understand why you keep bleeding money on small purchases, we first have to travel back in time. For hundreds of thousands of years, the human brain evolved in an environment of extreme scarcity. If our ancestors found a calorie-dense food source or a rare material, their brains rewarded them with a massive chemical rush. That rush was designed to make them consume or hoard that resource immediately. There was no such thing as saving for retirement on the savannah. Your brain was wired for immediate survival, and it developed an incredibly powerful neurochemical system to ensure you acted on impulses that kept you alive. Fast forward to today. You are walking around with that exact same ancient hardware, but you are living in an environment of absolute, overwhelming abundance. The problem is that your brain does not know the difference between a rare, life-saving resource and a targeted social media advertisement for a $20 gadget. The same chemical pathways light up. The modern consumer economy was not built by accident. It was built by incredibly smart people who understand human biology better than we do. Every single day, you are thrust into a digital and physical world engineered to extract capital from your ancient brain wiring. And they do this by attacking your cognitive load through a phenomenon known as decision fatigue. Most people think of willpower as a moral virtue. They believe that if they just try harder, they will be better with money. But neuroscientists have proven that willpower is not a personality trait. It is a biological resource. It is a battery that slowly drains every time you have to make a choice. Think about a typical Tuesday. You wake up and decide whether to hit snooze or get out of bed. You decide what to wear. You decide what to eat for breakfast. You navigate traffic. You make 100 micro decisions at your job before noon. You answer emails, manage conflicts, and plan your evening. By the time you are staring at a checkout screen at 5 in the afternoon, your prefrontal cortex is completely exhausted. Your willpower battery is sitting at 1%. This state of willpower depletion is exactly what corporate marketing departments are waiting for. They know that when you are tired, your brain looks for shortcuts. It looks for the path of least resistance to get a quick hit of pleasure and relief. This is why impulse purchases rarely happen at 8 in the morning on a Saturday when you are fully rested. They happen at the end of a long work day. They happen late at night when you are endless scrolling on your phone in bed. Modern retail environments, both physical and digital, are meticulously designed to catch you in this exact state of cognitive exhaustion. Think about the physical grocery store. The essential items like milk and eggs are intentionally placed at the very back of the store. You have to walk past thousands of highly engineered, brightly colored products just to get your basic necessities. By the time you reach the checkout lane, you have made countless decisions to say no. And what is waiting for you at the checkout lane? Candy, magazines, and cheap trinkets. They place these items right at the finish line because they know your decision fatigue is at its absolute peak. Your brain literally lacks the metabolic energy to resist one more temptation, especially when the price tag is only $3. The digital world is just a hyper-efficient version of the exact same trap, tailored to your specific browsing history and delivered right to your pocket. This is why you have to stop blaming yourself. You are not weak, and you are not inherently bad at managing your finances. You are simply bringing a tired, evolutionary, outdated brain to a war against supercomputers and behavioral psychologists. They have mapped your neural pathways, and they have built a perfectly frictionless slide that leads straight from your bank account to their quarterly earnings reports. When you look at your credit card statement and feel that wave of guilt, you are experiencing the aftermath of an unfair fight. You are expecting perfection from a biological system that is practically begging for a break. Understanding this is the first step toward true financial freedom. Once you realize that the game is rigged against your willpower, you can stop playing their game and start building a system that actually protects you. Have you ever noticed that you'll agonize for 3 days over a $50 purchase, reading every review on the internet, but you'll blindly tap your card for $12 on a random lunch without a second thought? This makes zero mathematical sense. $50 is $50, and 4 $12 lunches is $48. Yet, your brain processes these two financial events as completely different realities. This is the insidious trap that keeps people broke. When we look at a large, single purchase, our brain immediately flags it as a significant event. It triggers a risk assessment protocol. But when we look at a small, recurring purchase, the brain completely ignores it. We convince ourselves that these tiny transactions exist in a vacuum. We tell ourselves that a $5 coffee has absolutely nothing to do with our inability to save for a down payment on a house. We separate the small treats from the big goals. Behavioral economists at the University of Chicago actually gave this phenomenon a name. They call it mental accounting. Their research demonstrated that human beings don't treat money as perfectly interchangeable, even though that's exactly how math works. Instead, we create invisible, arbitrary categories in our heads. We have a bucket for rent, a bucket for savings, and a nebulous, poorly defined bucket for just getting through the day. The researchers found that once we assign money to that daily survival bucket, we stop tracking it. We mentally write it off. If you find a $20 bill on the street, you're incredibly likely to spend it immediately on a frivolous treat because your brain categorized it as free money. But if you earned that exact same $20 at your job, you'd be much more likely to use it responsibly. It's the exact same $20, but your brain created a totally different narrative around it. The reason your brain does this is to protect you from cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the extreme mental discomfort you feel when your actions don't match your beliefs. You believe you're a responsible person who wants to build wealth. but you're currently standing in line waiting to buy an $8 pastry. If your brain connected that pastry directly to your long-term wealth, you'd feel terrible. So, to protect your ego and resolve that discomfort, your brain uses mental accounting to isolate the purchase. It tells you that this specific $8 doesn't matter. It's just lunch money. It's just a little treat to get you through a hard Tuesday. By placing a mental wall between the microtransaction and your overarching financial reality, your brain effectively bypasses the guilt. It gives you permission to bleed out slowly. This is a brilliant survival mechanism for protecting your daily mood, but it's an absolute disaster for your net worth. Because while your brain is busy organizing your spending into these cute little imaginary buckets, your bank account only knows one reality. The bank doesn't care that you categorized those 12 random online purchases as necessary self-care. It just subtracts the total from your available balance. We also fall victim to anchoring bias in this exact same moment. We anchor the cost of our daily habits to the immediate environment, not to our actual income. If everyone in your office buys a $15 salad for lunch, $15 suddenly feels like the baseline anchor. Your brain accepts it as normal and necessary. You stop doing the math. You stop realizing that this perfectly normal habit is draining $4,000 a year from your after-tax income. You're not failing because you lack self-control. You're failing because your brain is actively lying to you about how money works, to keep you comfortable in the present moment. It's intentionally blinding you to the cumulative damage of your small choices. As long as you rely on your brain to make real-time judgment calls about $5 and $10 purchases, you'll always lose. Your brain will always find a mental accounting loophole to justify the dopamine hit. The only way to defeat mental accounting is to destroy the invisible buckets. You have to stop treating your daily spending like it exists in a separate universe from your wealth-building goals. We have to force the brain to see the entire financial picture at once, removing its ability to hide small purchases in the shadows of your daily routine. And the most effective way to do that is to understand exactly what happens in your nervous system right before you tap your card. Think about the last time you ordered something exciting online. Remember the rush you felt when you finally found the exact item you were looking for. You added it to your cart, entered your shipping details, and clicked confirm. For the next few days, every time you checked the tracking number, you felt a little surge of excitement. This is the high we are all chasing when we shop. We genuinely believe that acquiring the object is what is going to make us happy. But what actually happens when the package arrives? You tear open the cardboard box, you pull out the item, and you look at it. For about 5 minutes, it feels great. But almost immediately, the excitement starts to vanish. You put the item on a shelf or in your closet, and within a few days, it just becomes background noise in your life. The thrill is completely gone, and very soon, you find yourself browsing your phone again, looking for the next thing to buy. Research from Stanford's Graduate School of Business explains exactly why this incredibly frustrating, hollow feeling happens. Scientists wanted to understand the biological mechanics of shopping, so they put subjects into functional MRI machines and looked at their brain scans while they made purchasing decisions. They wanted to see the exact moment the brain's reward centers lit up and flooded the system with feel-good chemicals. What the researchers discovered completely shifted our understanding of consumer behavior. The massive spike in dopamine did not happen when the subjects actually received the item. It didn't even happen immediately after they bought it. The chemical spike happened during the anticipation phase. The dopamine peaked right before they clicked buy, while they were still in the hunting phase of the transaction. Dopamine, as it turns out, is entirely misunderstood by the general public. It is not a reward molecule that makes you feel happy after you achieve something. It is a motivation molecule. Its primary biological purpose is to force you to take action to acquire resources. Once that action is taken and the transaction is complete, the dopamine instantly crashes. The brain aggressively shuts off the chemical faucet because the goal has been achieved and it needs to conserve energy for the next hunt. This creates what we call the anticipation engine. Your brain is literally chasing the high of wanting something, not the reality of having it. Corporate retailers and tech companies understand this biology perfectly. This is why they use countdown timers, limited edition drops, flash sales, and constant shipping notifications. These tools are aggressively engineered to stretch out the anticipation phase, artificially extending your dopamine spike so you associate their brand with a biological high. You are caught in a relentless loop of false relief. You feel stressed, tired, or bored after a long day. You open a shopping app, and your brain instantly recognizes a chance to feel good. You browse, you feel that surge of chemical excitement, you make the purchase, and then the chemical wave crashes. You are left exactly where you started, feeling stressed and tired, just with less money in your checking account. You didn't actually buy a product. You bought a temporary neurochemical shift. You cannot use willpower to fight a dopamine crash. Your brain will always seek a chemical equilibrium. If you try to simply tell yourself to stop wanting things, you will fail because you are fighting millions of years of evolutionary design that commands you to seek out resources. We cannot turn off the anticipation engine, but we can build a system that redirects it. The system fix for this specific biological trap is called the dopamine cooling period. You need to structurally separate the thrill of shopping from the physical act of paying for the item. You do this by implementing a mandatory 72-hour waiting rule for any non-essential purchase. But here is the critical part. You do not tell yourself no. Telling yourself no triggers feelings of restriction and loss aversion, which only makes you want the item more. Instead, when you see something you want, you put it in your digital cart, or you bookmark the page and you write it down on a specific list on your phone. You give your brain total permission to want the item and to plan for buying it. By doing this, you still get the initial dopamine spike from hunting and finding the resource. But by forcing a 72-hour delay before you actually hand over your money, you allow the neurochemical wave to completely wash over you and dissipate. When you open that list 3 days later, the chemical high is entirely gone. The biological storm has passed. At this point, your prefrontal cortex, the logical, forward-thinking part of your brain, comes back online. Without the blinding fog of dopamine, you look at the item in your cart and realize you do not actually care about it anymore. You have successfully hacked your own anticipation engine, saving your money and your peace of mind without relying on a single ounce of raw discipline. If you want to understand the absolute ultimate weapon of modern corporate commerce, you have to look at the concept of convenience. We have been sold this beautiful, comforting lie that a seamless checkout experience is a technological miracle designed to make our lives easier. We celebrate the fact that we can order a pizza, buy a sweater, and book a flight without ever leaving the couch. Think about how terrifyingly easy it is to spend money right now. You are browsing a website, you see a product, and a little button appears at the bottom of your screen. You do not even have to type in your shipping address. You just double-click the side button on your phone, the screen reads your face, a little check mark appears, and the transaction is done. You look at your phone, and the money is gone. It feels like absolute magic. But this magic is actually the most dangerous financial trap ever invented. The banking and technology industries did not spend billions of dollars developing one-click checkout and digital wallets because they care about saving you 30 seconds of typing. They developed this technology to systematically dismantle the single biggest biological obstacle standing between them and your bank account. They needed to eliminate the psychological pain of paying. To understand how this works, we have to look at landmark research conducted at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Researchers at MIT wanted to see how the method of payment changed human behavior, so they set up an auction for highly desirable tickets to a sporting event. They divided the participants into two groups. One group had to bid with physical cash, and the other group was told to bid with a credit card. The results of this study fundamentally changed behavioral finance forever. The participants who were bidding with credit cards were willing to pay more than twice as much for the exact same tickets as the people paying with cash. The MIT researchers realized that the abstract nature of plastic cards fundamentally altered how the human brain calculates value and loss. Neuroscientists later discovered exactly why this happens. When you reach into your pocket, pull out a physical $20 bill, and hand it to a cashier, your brain registers a specific biological event. The physical act of giving away a tangible resource activates the insula, which is a region of your brain closely associated with the experience of physical pain and social rejection. When you spend cash, your brain quite literally hurts. This pain is a vital evolutionary defense mechanism. It is the biological brake pedal that forces you to stop and evaluate if the trade is really worth it. But when you swipe a piece of plastic, or worse, when you simply let a phone scan your face, that physical sequence is completely broken. The insula stays completely dark. No alarm bells ring. Your brain does not register that a loss has occurred until days later when you look at your statement. This is the anesthesia of frictionless payments. Tech companies have successfully medicated your financial pain receptors. When you remove the friction and the pain from a transaction, you are no longer making a conscious financial decision. You are simply performing an involuntary muscle twitch. You are reacting to a stimulus without any of the natural biological safeguards that kept your ancestors alive. This entirely frictionless environment is the primary driver behind your constant willpower depletion. You are asking your tired, overworked prefrontal cortex to act as the sole defender of your wealth, while simultaneously fighting against a system that has been specifically engineered to be completely invisible. You cannot out-willpower an environment that has been designed to bypass your conscious mind entirely. The only way to win this specific battle is to intentionally break the machine. You have to actively reintroduce friction into your financial life. You have to sabotage the smooth, seamless pathways that the tech companies have so generously built for you. You need to make spending money annoying, tedious, and slightly painful again. The system fix starts today. You need to go into every single web browser and shopping app you use, and you need to delete your saved credit card information. You must remove your card from Apple Pay or Google Pay for anything other than absolute emergencies. You want to make sure that the one-click checkout button is completely dead and useless. From now on, if you want to buy something online, you must force yourself to physically stand up, walk across the room, find your physical wallet, pull out the plastic card, and manually type all 16 digits, the expiration date, and the security code into the form. That 90-second delay, that tiny bit of forced physical and mental friction, is all your brain needs to wake up, re-engage the prefrontal cortex, and stop a dopamine-driven mistake. Now that you understand exactly how the machine is built to extract your money, we have to talk about how to build a fortress around it. The biggest mistake people make at this point is relying on motivation. They watch a video, read a book, and swear they will just be more disciplined. But motivation is an emotion, and emotions are temporary. You cannot build a lifelong financial strategy on something as fragile as your mood. Instead of trying to change your brain, you need to change your environment. You have to become the architect of your own choices. In behavioral economics, this is called choice architecture. You are intentionally designing a system where making the right financial decision requires absolutely zero effort, and making the wrong financial decision requires a massive amount of physical and mental energy. The foundation of this new architecture is automation. Automation is the absolute ultimate antidote to willpower depletion. Every time you have to manually log into your bank account and transfer money to savings, you are forcing your brain to make a choice. You are giving your brain an opportunity to negotiate, to make excuses, and to find a mental accounting loophole to justify keeping that money in your checking account. Researchers at Harvard Business School have studied this extensively through the lens of pre-commitment devices. A pre-commitment device is a choice you make in the present that restricts your options in the future. It is a way of locking in a good decision while you still have the cognitive energy and clarity to do so, entirely removing your future tired self from the equation. When you automate your finances, you are using the ultimate pre-commitment device. You decide one time on a Sunday morning when you are fully rested exactly how your money should flow. You set up automatic transfers. The moment your paycheck hits your account, the system takes over. Before you even wake up on payday, a percentage of your money is already moved to your investments, and another percentage is moved to your savings. This immediate separation is critical because it plays on a psychological principle called out of sight, out of mind. If you leave all your money in one massive checking account, your brain will anchor to that large number. You will feel wealthier than you actually are, and you will naturally spend more. By automatically sweeping the money away into accounts you cannot easily access, you are artificially lowering your baseline anchor. Implementing this system is also how you finally cure your cognitive dissonance. Remember that terrible guilt you feel when you buy something you know you shouldn't. That happens because your spending is out of alignment with your goals. But when your wealth building is completely automated, that guilt vanishes. You know that your future is already funded for the month. You can finally spend what is left without the nagging voice in the back of your head. But what about the money that is left over? The money you are actually supposed to spend on groceries, gas, and daily life. This is where we introduce the concept of the weekly allowance trapdoor. Most people try to manage a monthly budget, which is a total disaster because the human brain is terrible at projecting consequences 30 days into the future. A month feels like an eternity to your ancient survival software. Instead, you take your monthly spending allowance and divide it by 4. You set up an automatic transfer every single Monday morning that moves exactly 1 week of spending money into a completely separate checking account. This account has its own debit card. This is the only card you carry in your physical wallet. Your main credit cards and your primary checking accounts are locked away at home. When you do this, you are building a physical wall of friction. You only have 7 days of capital to manage at any given time. If it is Thursday and your allowance card is running low, you naturally slow down your spending. You do not have to rely on a complex spreadsheet. The friction of an empty account does the calculating for you. You are working with your biology, naturally responding to immediate scarcity rather than trying to force yourself to care about an abstract number at the end of the month. This is what it means to stop fighting yourself. You are no longer relying on your exhausted prefrontal cortex to make 50 perfect financial decisions a day. You have built a machine that runs entirely in the background. Your investments are automated, your savings are automated, and your daily spending is regulated by intentional friction. You have successfully taken your raw willpower completely out of the equation. Once you successfully remove your raw willpower from the equation and let automation take over, you have to face a very uncomfortable mathematical reality. The human brain is incredibly bad at understanding exponential growth. We evolved to think in linear terms. If you take 1 step, you move 1 yard. If you take 10 steps, you move 10 yards. That is linear thinking, and it is exactly how we process our daily spending. But money does not operate on a linear scale. Money operates on an exponential scale. And this fundamental misunderstanding is why micro-spending is so biologically dangerous. When you look at a $12 purchase or a random $15 digital subscription on your credit card statement, your brain evaluates that transaction in a total vacuum. It asks a simple, linear question. Can I afford to lose $15 today without missing rent? Because the answer is almost always yes. You feel no immediate financial danger. But that is the wrong question entirely. The real question is what that $15 represents over a timeline of 2 or 3 decades. Let us break down the exact math of a very common invisible habit. Imagine you are spending just $12 extra a day on frictionless conveniences. Maybe it is buying coffee and a pastry instead of making breakfast at home, ordering delivery instead of cooking, or casually clicking buy on a targeted social media ad. If you do this just 4 days a week, 50 weeks a year, that is roughly $2,400 a year that is bleeding out of your life completely unnoticed. $2,400 a year might not sound like a completely life-altering amount of money in the short term, but you cannot just look at the raw number. You have to calculate the opportunity cost. Every single dollar you spend today to trigger your anticipation engine is a dollar that cannot be invested in your future. If you took that exact same $2,400 and automatically routed it into a basic index fund, returning an average of 8% a year, the math becomes staggering. Over 30 years, that completely forgotten $12 daily habit does not just equal $72,000 in saved cash. Thanks to the relentless math of the compound effect, that money actually grows to just under $300,000. That is the true cost of those microtransactions. You are not just buying a small convenience to get through a Tuesday. You are literally financing your own future anxiety. Think about what $300,000 actually represents to a normal person. That is not just a digital number on a banking screen. That is a paid-off mortgage in many parts of the country. That is the ability to pay for medical care without going into debt. That is the option to walk away from a toxic, stressful job 5 to 10 years earlier than you ever planned. That massive level of security is what you are actually trading. When you surrender to the anesthesia of frictionless payments, you are trading decades of future freedom for a 3-minute dopamine spike today. When you finally see the math laid out like this, the cognitive dissonance instantly fades away. You stop looking at the $12 as a harmless little treat, and you start seeing it as a direct threat to your future independence. This is the terrifying and beautiful reality of the compound effect. It is a universal mathematical law of finance, and it is always working, whether you are paying attention to it or not. If you are constantly draining your surplus capital on tiny, impulsive purchases, the compound effect is silently working against you. It is multiplying your lost opportunity over time, turning harmless daily habits into a massive block of financial dread when you finally reach retirement age. But when you build the friction-based systems we talked about earlier, the compound effect becomes your ultimate defensive weapon. By automating your investments and locking away your savings before you ever have a chance to spend them, you capture that exponential growth automatically. You stop fighting the current and start letting the math pull you toward wealth while you sleep. This is the exact difference between the person who relies on raw discipline and the person who relies on behavioral systems. The disciplined person wakes up every single day and goes to war with their own brain chemistry. They try to manually resist the marketing algorithms, the targeted ads, and their own decision fatigue. They might win on Monday and Tuesday, but by Friday night, their willpower is entirely depleted, and the friction-free economy swallows them whole. The systems person does not fight at all. They accept the fact that they are biologically wired to seek dopamine and avoid pain. They accept that they will eventually get tired, stressed, and make bad choices. So they build an environment where the wealth-building choices happen entirely in the background, and the impulsive choices require far too much physical effort to execute. They do not need willpower because they have architecture. The biggest misconception in the world of personal finance is the idea that building structure around your money is a form of punishment. Most people view the strategies we just discussed, like deleting saved credit cards from your browser or locking away your main checking account, as a restrictive cage. They think that by introducing friction and automation, they are somehow depriving themselves of the joy of living in the moment. But the reality of behavioral finance is the exact opposite. Living at the mercy of targeted algorithms and your own depleted willpower is the actual cage. When you do not have automated systems protecting your wealth, your money controls you. You are held hostage by the constant, exhausting need to make perfect decisions in an environment designed to make you fail. The friction-free economy is the prison, and automation is the key to walking out the front door. The ultimate goal of understanding human psychology is not to stop you from ever spending money again. It is to ensure that when you do spend your money, it is a conscious, deliberate choice that actually brings you lasting joy rather than a fleeting neurochemical spike. You want to buy things that actually matter to you, not things that simply satisfied a biological urge on a tired Tuesday evening. You have to stop viewing money management as a financial diet. A diet implies restriction and starvation, and psychological starvation almost always leads to a massive, uncontrolled binge. This is exactly why rigid manual budgets fail for the exact same reasons that crash diets fail. You can only fight your own biology for so long before the dam completely breaks. Instead of a diet, you need to view this new architecture as a protective moat around your life energy. Every single dollar you earn represents a fraction of your time on this earth. You traded your limited hours, your stress, and your energy to acquire that capital. Why would you ever let a brilliantly engineered, frictionless checkout screen steal that time away from you without putting up a fight? We have covered a massive amount of psychological ground today, from the mental accounting loops discovered at the University of Chicago to the dopamine anticipation engine mapped out by Stanford, and the frictionless anesthesia proven by MIT. You can now clearly see the invisible strings that have been pulling your wallet open for years. You know exactly how the trap is set by the modern consumer economy. More importantly, you now know that you are not broken, and you never were. You were just trying to operate an ancient human brain in an incredibly hostile digital environment that it was never designed to navigate. The intense guilt and the deep shame you felt looking at those endless credit card statements were simply the byproducts of an unfair, asymmetrical fight. But now, the dynamic has completely changed. You have the architectural blueprints, you have the specific knowledge required to build strategic friction, to fully automate your savings, and to completely separate the thrill of the hunt from the psychological pain of the purchase. You finally have the power to step entirely out of the reactive cycle of consumerism. True wealth is not just about accumulating a massive, static number in an investment account. True wealth is about reclaiming your cognitive bandwidth. It is about waking up in the morning knowing with absolute certainty that your financial house is entirely in order, which allows you to focus your mental energy on the things in life that actually matter to you. When you let structural systems take over the heavy lifting, you are buying back your own peace of mind. You permanently silence the cognitive dissonance that has been keeping you awake at night. You transform yourself from a passive, exhausted consumer into an active, intentional architect of your own financial future. If this resonated with you, drop a comment below. And if you want to understand the deeper psychology behind why we do what we do with our money, hit subscribe. This is Mindcraft, where ideas become action and action becomes your future.